Cable stitches are some of my favorite knitting stitches. They are so easy to do, yet they make your work look advanced. Knitting cables really ups your scarf game and ups your sweater game. And your friends will be like, "Oh my goodness, you are so skilled." And you could be like, "Yeah, I know." In my previous knitting tutorial, I taught you the 2 basic stitches that you need to know: the knit stitch and the purl stitch. Cable knitting is simply using those 2 stitches in a slightly different way to create a 3-dimensional design. Here are a few examples of how cable stitches can be done to create different patterns. Here's a wide cable. Here's more of a wavy cable pattern. And here is a little more complicated cable pattern. The pattern I'm going to teach you today is this one right here. This is a very basic cable pattern where we have the cables over here on this side, twisting to the left, and the cables here on this side, twisting to the right. The supplies that you are going to need are some yarn, a set of knitting needles, a row counter, and a cable stitch holder. If you need a refresher on how to cast on, please review my previous knitting tutorial video. So that's 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4. With our 36 stitches cast onto our needle, we will flip it over to begin row 1. So I set my row counter to row 1. Whoops, upside down. There we go. And for row 1, we are going to start by knitting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to purl 2. So 1, 2. We will now knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we will purl 2. Knit 4. Purl 2. Knit 8. Purl 2, and then knit the last 4. We have finished row 1, so we flip our work over to begin row 2 on the back side. We will set our row counter to row 2. All row 2 is a reverse of what we did on row 1. Whenever we knitted on row 1, which is the front side, we will purl on row 2. Whenever we have purled on row 1, we will knit on row 2. If you recall from my previous tutorial, this is called the stockinette pattern. So we purl 4, and if you lose track of whether or not you should be purling or knitting, examine the stitch. This stitch has a little bar that goes across. That means that over on the front side of the work, I had knit that stitch. And now on the back side of the work, that bar means I'm going to purl that stitch. Likewise, if you see the stitch here, these two stitches have a little V. That means on this side of the work, we are going to knit those two stitches, because on the previous side, we had purled those two stitches. So we're going to purl 4. Knit 2, purl 8, knit 2, purl 4, knit 2, purl 8, knit 2, and then purl the last 4. With row 2 completed, we flip our work back over, and we are now back to working on the front side, and we'll begin row 3. Row 3 is simply going to be a repeat of row 1. We're going to flip our work back over to the back side and begin row 4. Row 4 is a repeat of row 2. Back to the front on row 5. Row 5 is basically a repeat of rows 1 and 3. Row 6 is a repeat of rows 2 and 4. Okay, back to our front side, row 7. Row 7 is a repeat of rows 1, 3, and 5. Row 8 is a repeat of rows 2, 4, and 6. Okay, now we're on row 9, and this will be the row where we'll put in our first set of cable stitches and get to use this guy. But before we begin, I want you to look at what we've been doing here. On the swatch, each row of cables is 8 knit stitches wide, and that's what we've been doing down here. We've been making this bit of the pattern right here, 8 stitches across, and that's basically to set up our cable row. Between each cable row is a border which is 4 knit stitches wide, and that's what we have here, here, and here. And finally we have 2 purl stitches here on either side of our cable column, and these purl stitches serve to give a little more relief to the cable pattern, to make them stand out a little bit more. You don't have to put purl stitches next to your cabling. I like to, just because to me I just happen to like the way that looks. So we're going to begin row 9, and I'll show you how to start making your cables. On row 9 is where the fun begins. We're going to make our 4 knit stitch border. We're going to purl 2, and that's going to border either side of our cables to make the cable stand out. Okay, now we are up to the right side of our swatch where the cables twist that way toward the right. So to do that, we pick up our cable needle and we take up 4 stitches from the left needle and put them onto the cable needle. Looks like this. Just like that. Make sure they're secure. We drop them to the back. We knit the stitches that are on the left side needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we go back to our cable needle. Now there's two ways to do this. Some people will turn the needle all the way around so they can knit directly off of the cable needle. You can do that as well, or what I like to do is I simply take the stitches that are on the cable needle and I slip them back onto the left needle. For me, it keeps me from dropping stitches. It's just easier for me. It might be easier for you the other way, whichever way, makes your life easier. Then we're going to knit 4 stitches from the left needle. Then we go back to our 2 purl stitch border. Knit 4. Purl 2, and this should bring us to our left side columns. And since these columns on this side are going toward the left, we are going to pick up 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and drop them toward the front. So they hang there just like that. Then we're going to knit 4 from the left needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I take the stitches from the cable needle and I put them back onto my left needle. Just like that. And you knit those 4. 2, 3, 4. We make the 2 purl stitch border. And then we finish off with a 4 knit stitch border on the far left side. Okay, and that was our cable row. Now we flip over onto the wrong side of the work, and we're still keeping track of our row numbers, and this one's going to be row 10. Purl 4. Knit 2. Purl 8. And right now we're working the back side of those cable stitches. Knit, whoops, purl that one too. Knit 2. Purl 4. Knit 2. Purl 8, and this works the back side of those cable stitches. Knit 2, and purl 4. Rows 11 through 18 will be a repeat of rows 1 through 8. Okay, now we are back to the front side of our work. This will be row 19. Now, row 19 is a repeat of row 9, which means we are going to be making cables in this row. So, just like we did in row 9, we're going to knit 4. We're going to purl 2. Alright, now we've come to the beginning of this cable column. We're going to pick up our cable needle and we're going to pick up 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put these stitches in the back like so. Knit 4, replace those stitches from the cable needle back onto our left hand needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we knit those 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, that looks good. Let me purl 2. Knit 4. Purl 2. Okay, we've come to the other cable column. And this one is going to slant toward the left, so we pick up 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we hold these stitches right in the front like that. We knit 4 off the left needle. And we replace those 4 stitches. Just like that. Knit those 4. 2, 3, 4. Then we purl 2. It's the other side of that border. That border is our cable column. And then we knit the last 4. So you can see what it's starting to do. We're starting to get our twists. Alright. We flip our work back over to the back side. And this will be row 20. Rows 20 through 27 will be a repeat of rows 1 through 8 and rows 11 through 18. Now, on row 29, this row right here, if we wanted to, we could put another cable stitch in here and continue these twists as far as we wanted to go. But since I am almost running out of yarn for this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and bind off right here. So we'll just complete the swatch at this row here. I'm going to bind off knitwise 4. Bind off purlwise 2. Bind off knitwise 8. Bind off purlwise 2. Okay. 4 knit bind offs. Two purl bind offs. Eight knit bind offs. Two purl bind offs. Uh-oh. That one got away from me. And then finally our last 4. And there you have it. Here's a swatch we made.